Have you ever noticed how quiet your mind becomes when it stops looking for approval? Not the ordinary quiet, not the kind that hums in the background like a faint radio. This is a silence that presses against your skull, heavy, dense, unforgiving. It's the absence of the chatter that once told you who to be, how to act, what to say. You might feel a strange weight in that silence. It is not emptiness, it is a presence, something lurking just beyond the edges of thought. You cannot name it, yet you sense it quietly like a shadow pressing through your chest. Do you remember the first time you sought it? The look in someone's eyes that made you feel less or perhaps more? It doesn't matter. It is irrelevant now. What matters is that you once surrendered pieces of yourself to it. And now those pieces are returning, slowly, without asking permission. There is a certain danger in this. Dangerous in the way fire is dangerous. It warms, it illuminates, but it can consume if you are unprepared. And yet, most minds never reach this point. Most are endlessly hungry, forever trying to be seen, forever bending, shaping, twisting, until the edges of self disappear into the gaze of others. But you are beginning to step out of that orbit. Not triumphantly, not even consciously. Perhaps you do not even realize it yet. Listen to the way your thoughts move now. Are they restless, or have they settled into something colder, something sharper? Something that sees the world without pleading for its permission. Do you feel it? The subtle tremor that runs through the spine when you consider the absence of judgment? The way your chest tightens slightly, as if knowing finally that the eyes you feared no longer hold sway over you. There is a horror here, a horror that few will acknowledge, because when your mind no longer seeks approval, you are forced to confront yourself. Not the self you perform for others, not the self you imagine they desire, but the raw, unfiltered self that has been waiting, patient, beneath the layers of compliance. It is not comforting, it is not safe. You may feel the edges of it prickling your skin, as if reality itself were reshaping to fit the contours of your mind. And in that reshaping, there is a cold beauty, a kind of clarity that is more frightening than it is freeing, because now you can see everything you were blind to before. You might notice thoughts that make you uncomfortable, desires, impulses, judgments buried long ago, now rising like smoke from an old fire. You will want to ignore them. You may try. But silence has a way of forcing acknowledgement, and the longer you listen, the louder it becomes, until you can no longer pretend. Do you hear the rhythm of your own thought, separate from the rhythm of the world, separate from the rhythm of the gaze that once guided you? It is uneven, perhaps, unsettling, but it is yours, not borrowed, not stolen, yours. And in that ownership, there is a shadow that stretches longer than you expected, not monstrous, not evil, but undeniable, cold, patient, waiting, watching as you navigate the terrain you never allowed yourself to see. Ask yourself, quietly, what remains when you no longer seek approval? What remains when the performance drops and the mask falls and the silent audience disappears? You may not like the answer. Most do not. But it is necessary that you face it, if only for a moment, just long enough to notice the shape of your mind, unclaimed, unbound, and quietly dangerous. And in that moment, perhaps, just perhaps, you will feel the first tremor of something profound, something neither comforting nor celebratory, something real. You have been carrying a weight, not the weight of the world, not the kind of burden that announces itself with noise or drama. No, this weight is quieter. It coils around your chest, around your shoulders, around your thoughts. You may have mistaken it for weakness, for failure, for something shameful. But it is not. It is the weight of existing under the scrutiny of others. The weight of learning early on that to be seen, you must perform. To be accepted, you must contort. To be loved, you must erase. And so, slowly, piece by piece, you did, every day, every interaction, every thought shaped by the invisible eyes you could not escape, and that is exhausting. You are allowed to notice that exhaustion now, to admit it quietly, to recognize the toll that constant seeking has taken. You do not need to justify it. You do not need to explain it. You do not need to apologize for it. It is yours. The exhaustion, the ache, the frustration. It is real. It is valid. You may feel alone, as though nobody understands the subtle suffocation of always bending, always shrinking, always becoming someone else. Perhaps you have tried to speak of it. Perhaps words fail. Perhaps the world looks at you and smiles, or nods, or changes the subject, and you are left with only silence. That silence is not empty. It is recognition. Not from the world, but from yourself. You are noticing what you have endured. You are seeing it clearly, without disguise, without excuses. That alone is a rare and dangerous act. Do you feel it? That quiet acknowledgement deep in the chest? That tremor that whispers, "I have survived this." Somehow, there is a subtle, almost forbidden power in that recognition. Not the kind of power that conquers or leads or impresses. No, this is a power that trembles, that shakes the foundations of your own assumptions. It is dangerous, because once you see the truth of what you have carried, you cannot unknow it. You might feel guilt for having lived this way, for having needed approval, for having sacrificed pieces of yourself, but let it pass. You are allowed to witness it without judgment. You are allowed to feel it fully, with all the complexity, with all the tension, with all the unease. Notice the subtle currents in your mind now, the tension in your muscles, the heaviness in your chest, the way your breath catches when you admit it to yourself. These are not flaws. They are proof. Proof that you have lived, proof that you have endured, proof that your inner world has been shaped under weight and scrutiny. Even the darkness within you, the fear, the doubt, the quiet shame, is worthy of recognition. Jung spoke of shadows, of hidden selves, but before confronting them, you must first see the truth of your journey. You must feel, without flinching, the reality of the life that has demanded approval from you, and the exhaustion of giving it away. You do not need a solution. You do not need guidance. There is no moral here, no lesson to carry forward. The mere act of noticing, of seeing, that is enough. It is more than enough. It is a kind of dangerous honesty, because honesty does not comfort. Honesty unsettles. It shifts the ground beneath you, and yet it is necessary. So let yourself feel it. Let yourself sit with it, the ache, the fatigue, the quiet devastation of having spent so long bending for others. It is yours to acknowledge. And in this acknowledgement, you begin to take a small, subtle step, not toward triumph, not toward escape, not toward happiness, but toward awareness. Awareness is cold. Awareness is raw. Awareness does not soothe, but it is the beginning of seeing the world and yourself without illusions. And perhaps, as you sit with this weight, with this exhaustion, with this silent validation, you notice something shifting, not outwardly, not visibly, but inwardly. A tremor, a quiet acknowledgement that you are not only the pieces given away, you are also the pieces that remain, hidden, waiting to be seen. Do you feel it? That constant tug inside you, a pull between who you have been and who you are beginning to notice beneath it all. For years, perhaps decades, your mind has been divided, one half performing, shaping, contorting, bending to the expectations of others. The other half buried, silent, watching, waiting, patient, observing the concessions you have made, the compromises you have accepted as normal. It is not a gentle division, it is a tearing, a tension that never sleeps. You may have called it anxiety or doubt or even guilt, but those are only words. Words to disguise the deeper reality. The reality that your psyche has been pulled in two directions, at every moment, often without your awareness. Do you notice the subtle, almost imperceptible panic that surfaces when you consider choosing for yourself? When you allow a thought, a desire, a decision to be free from the gaze of others? That panic is not weakness. It is the mind recognizing the danger of independence. For a psyche accustomed to bending, autonomy feels like falling, and yet at the same time, there is a thrill, not the kind of excitement the world praises, not the kind that seeks applause or recognition. This is a thrill tinged with fear, the thrill of glimpsing what might exist if you stopped giving yourself away. Do you see the paradox? You want freedom, and yet you fear it. You crave authenticity, and yet you have been trained to doubt your own desires. Every thought you entertain, every feeling you allow, is measured against invisible scales you were never asked to choose. And still, somewhere beneath the weight, the other half of you stirs. This conflict is not a puzzle to solve. There is no neat reconciliation waiting. The tension itself is the truth. The tension itself is a mirror. It reflects the life you have inherited from others, and the life that waits quietly, patient beneath it. Do you hear the subtle unease when you notice this? That tightness in the chest, the way your mind tries to flee into familiar patterns? It is not accidental. Your psyche has been trained to obey, trained to seek approval, to fear rejection, to believe that self-interest is dangerous, and in that fear there is power. Dangerous power. The power of noticing the mechanisms that shaped you. The power of seeing how much of your life has been dictated by invisible hands.
This is not comforting, this is not easy, but it is
unavoidable. You might ask yourself, who am I, if not the self molded for others? The question itself is dangerous. Dangerous because it offers no immediate answer. Dangerous because it opens a space you cannot fully control. Dangerous because it forces you to confront desires, impulses, shadows, all those parts of you that were quietly suppressed to maintain the illusion of compliance. And here, in this quiet, uncomfortable space, you may feel a tremor of anger, or sorrow, or confusion, perhaps all three. That is natural. That is the mind reacting to the recognition that it has been divided. And that division has cost you more than you realized. Do not rush past this. Sit with it. Notice the unease as it coils around your thoughts. Observe how it seeps into your chest, into your spine, into your breath. Do not try to calm it. Do not try to fix it. That is not the point. The point is to see, and to see without flinching. This is the inner conflict, the self shaped for approval, and the self quietly awakening from it. They exist in tension. They are dangerous to each other. They are dangerous to you, and yet that danger is necessary. Without it, the shadow cannot emerge. Without it, the mind cannot awaken. Without it, you remain bound. So notice it, feel it. Let the discomfort rise and fall like waves in a dark sea. There is no resolution here. There is only observation, only awareness, only the recognition that the mind can hold opposing forces, and that in that holding, there is a strange, cold power. And in the quiet moments that follow, when no one is watching, when no one is expecting, you may begin to hear the first echoes of a self that is entirely your own, not yet whole, not yet safe, but undeniably emerging. Have you noticed the quiet moments when the weight of everything becomes unbearable? Yet, nobody is there to witness it. This is not the kind of breakdown that shouts or draws attention. It is silent, almost invisible. A collapse that seeps slowly like water through cracks in stone. You may feel it in the chest first, a pressure, a hollow ache, then in the stomach, then in the space between your thoughts, a subtle fracture spreading through the mind itself. It comes without warning, or perhaps it has been coming all along, patiently, unnoticed, while you carried the burdens of expectation, of performance, of endless giving. And now, there is no one to approve, no one to watch, no one to measure your worth, nothing to distract from the rawness of it. Do you feel it? The trembling beneath the calm surface, the way your hands might tighten, or your jaw, or your chest, all unconscious. The mind tries to resist, tries to control, but control has been eroded by years of obedience to others. The breakdown is subtle, but inevitable. You might notice tears or the lack of them. You might notice a silence so deep it feels physical, pressing against your skull. Perhaps you try to name it: anxiety, depression, sadness. But those are just labels. They do not capture the strange, dangerous clarity of the collapse, the recognition that everything you have been holding together is fragile. And here, in the silence, see, the unspoken truth emerges. All the compromises you made, all the parts of yourself sacrificed for acceptance, all the moments you bent and folded to meet someone else's standard, they converge now in quiet, unrelenting clarity. It is not comfortable. It is not safe. It can feel like a betrayal, your own self betraying you. The mind rebels in subtle ways, a thought you cannot suppress, a memory you cannot erase, an emotion you cannot redirect. It is the mind reclaiming its power, not with force, but with inevitability. And yet, there is no relief, no catharsis. This is not a story of healing. This is observation. Witnessing the raw, dangerous power of emotion unbound by expectation. Every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of thought carries the weight of what you allowed yourself to deny. Perhaps you notice anger rising, sharp and quiet, or grief heavy and unannounced, or fear lurking just beneath the surface. Do not push it away. Do not soften it. These emotions are dangerous because they are true. They are proof of the life you have lived, proof of the self you have hidden, proof of the mind awakening. In this breakdown there is a strange symmetry. The mind fractures, and yet in that fracture something is revealed. Not clarity in the sense of comfort, not understanding in the sense of peace, but a reflection, a mirror of every part of yourself you denied. The shadow stirs in the edges of the collapse, whispering truths you were too careful to hear before. Notice how the silence responds. Notice how the body carries what the mind cannot name. Notice the subtle tremor that courses through the chest, down the arms, into the legs. A quiet acknowledgement that you are still alive, still present, still facing it alone. And in this silence you begin to see the enormity of what you have been carrying. The quiet devastation of bending for others. The subtle, corrosive weight of performing selflessness when your own self was starving. The mind has broken, and in its breaking, it is beginning to reclaim something, though not yet complete, not yet safe. Sit with it. Do not try to escape. Do not try to fix it. This breakdown is not failure. It is recognition, dangerous recognition. And recognition is the first step toward facing the shadow. And in the stillness that follows, perhaps, just perhaps, you feel the tremor of something unnameable. A quiet warning, a whisper, a presence. The mind, in its collapse, is alive, watching, waiting, patient. Have you ever felt the quiet stirrings of something within you, something you have never allowed yourself to name? It has been there all along, lurking beneath the surface of your thoughts, buried under expectations, tucked away behind polite smiles, social masks, and carefully constructed obedience. You may have called it fear, or guilt, or shame, but it is older than that. It is the shadow. Jung spoke of the shadow as the parts of ourselves we deny, the pieces we reject because they are inconvenient, because they are dark, because the world cannot accept them, and, in turn, neither could we. Every desire you silenced, every impulse you ignored, every anger you hid, every longing you abandoned. It has gathered patiently, quietly, waiting. And now, in the silence that comes when the mind no longer seeks approval, It begins to stir. It emerges not like a threat or a monster, but like a presence, a still, observant weight that watches your thoughts, your desires, your fears, patiently noting every fracture, every denial, every compromise. Do you feel it? The subtle tremor as you recognize the parts of yourself you never admitted, even to yourself. Perhaps you feel shame, perhaps guilt, perhaps anger, or perhaps you feel nothing, a blankness that is just as unsettling. That, too, is the shadow. It does not comfort. It does not console. It waits. And there is danger here. The shadow is dangerous because it is real, because it contains the truths you have refused to see. It contains the impulses you have repressed. It contains the parts of yourself you have been taught to fear, and when it emerges, it does not ask permission, it does not negotiate. It simply shows itself. You might ask, who am I if this is me? And the question is not meant to soothe. It is meant to unsettle. It is meant to make you pause in the middle of your carefully ordered mind, to make you confront the parts you have denied, to make you feel the weight of your own completeness and your own incompleteness at the same time. Notice the way the shadow touches you. Perhaps it whispers long-forgotten desires. Perhaps it flickers with anger at the compromises you have made. Perhaps it surfaces as sadness sharp and quiet that you cannot escape. It is dangerous because it is yours, because it cannot be ignored without cost. Do not try to fight it. Do not try to push it away. That is impossible. The shadow is patient, persistent, inevitable. You have been dancing around it your whole life, giving away yourself in exchange for approval. Now, it asks nothing of you but acknowledgement, nothing else. And in that acknowledgement, there is a subtle tremor of power. Not power that commands, not power that conquers, power that is dangerous precisely because it is still uncontrolled. The shadow contains the raw material of your psyche, the unclaimed, unshaped energy of your mind. It is both frightening and unavoidable. Ask yourself quietly, what have I been denying in myself all these years? Let the question sit. Let it echo in the stillness of your mind. Listen for the subtle answer, the whisper of something you buried, the flicker of a desire you never let yourself claim. Do not reach for it. Do not act on it. Just notice it. Let it be. The shadow is not an enemy. It is not evil. It is not even wrong. It is simply there, waiting, observing, patient. And in its presence you are forced to see the truth of yourself fully, even the parts that are frightening, even the parts that feel dangerous. And perhaps now, in the cold awareness of your own hidden depths, you begin to understand something unsettling. The self you have performed for others is incomplete. It is a fragment. But the shadow is whole, uncompromising, undeniable, and in acknowledging it, you are taking the first dangerous step toward your own reality. Sit with it. Do not flee, do not soften, do not judge. Watch it, feel it, name nothing. Let the shadow exist, within you, alongside you, quietly waiting, patient, dangerous, alive. Do you notice the quiet shift? It comes slowly, imperceptibly, like ice forming on a still lake, not sudden, not dramatic, just a subtle withdrawal from the currents that once pulled you in every direction. The eyes you once sought, the judgments you once feared, the expectations you once carried, they begin to recede, and with them a strange emptiness and a strange freedom. This detachment is not triumph, it is not peace, it is not relief. It is something colder, something deliberate, something that forces you to confront the truth of your own internal authority, that the mind you have carried all this time can exist independently of the world's gaze. Perhaps you feel it in your chest first, a lightness, or maybe it is hollow, Perhaps a tightening of the shoulders, as if your body no longer braces for the weight of others. Perhaps your thoughts begin to wander in directions you previously censored, unspoken, unacted upon. That is the detachment taking hold. It is unsettling, dangerous, because in stepping away, you feel the absence of the world's approval. And with that absence comes a mirror that reflects not the self you performed, but the self you have avoided, the self you have hidden, ignored, or denied. And that reflection is difficult. Do you notice the subtle tremor when someone praises you now? When someone criticizes you? It may barely touch you. It may almost seem irrelevant. That is the mind learning, slowly, that its equilibrium does not require external validation, that its stability comes from within. And yet, detachment is not empty. It is charged. Like metal in a magnetic field, your emotions remain present, but unbound, dangerous perhaps, because you are no longer constrained by the polite rules of appeasement, by the careful suppression of self-interest. The energy of your mind is raw, unclaimed, and aware. You might notice subtle feelings rising, irritation, impatience, quiet contempt, or relief, faint and almost alien. These are not anomalies. They are signals. They are the mind realigning itself with its own measure of reality, rather than the distorted measures imposed from outside. Do not mistake this for arrogance or superiority. It is not. It is simply awareness, in its coldest, most deliberate form. Detached does not mean warm. Detached does not mean calm, passionate. Detached means observed, unmoved, untethered. And in that untethering, you begin to understand the strange, dangerous power of your own mind. Notice how others' reactions now ripple across you differently. Perhaps they surprise you. Perhaps they irritate you. Perhaps they barely register. That is the detachment testing itself. That is the mind exploring the limits of its independence. And you are neither triumphant nor consoled, you are aware. And with awareness comes subtle clarity. The patterns that once trapped you, the invisible chains of expectation, the constant tension of bending, they do not disappear. But you feel them differently. You feel them as separate from yourself, as separate from the life you quietly carry forward. You observe them coldly, without yielding. This phase is dangerous precisely because it is quiet. It is silent. It is not accompanied by applause, nor by comfort. It is the mind learning to survive, alone, in its own company. Learning to navigate the world without the crutch of approval. And in that navigation, there is power. Not warm power, not triumphant power, but raw, subtle, and dangerous power. Sit with this. Do not rush. Let the detachment seep into your bones. Let it touch your thoughts, your impulses, your judgments. Let yourself notice how the absence of obligation shapes you. Let yourself feel the subtle tremor of independence. And perhaps in the stillness that follows, you will sense the faint stirrings of authority returning. Quiet, cold, unacknowledged, but unmistakable. The mind begins to reclaim itself. Do you notice the quiet shift? It is subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A tremor in the chest, a tightening in the spine, a thought that refuses to bow. Something inside you begins to stir, not loud, not triumphant, not celebratory, just present, patient, dangerous. For so long your mind has been a field of surrender, approval, expectation, judgment, each one a tether, each one a chain. And now, those chains are quietly slipping away. Not all at once, not completely, but enough to reveal the contours of the mind beneath, the mind that has always existed, unclaimed, unbound, unnoticed. Do you feel it? That subtle sense of authority returning? Not the kind of authority the world admires, not the kind that commands attention or respect. This is something colder, sharper, a recognition of the self as sovereign, not performed, not borrowed, not lent. The quiet awareness I exist, and I am not beholden. It is unsettling, dangerous, because power that has been absent for so long feels unfamiliar. It is not warmth, it is not confidence, it is the quiet, sharp edge of clarity, a presence that does not need applause, does not bend to fear, does not seek validation. You might notice the subtle changes in perception. The world does not hold the same weight over you. The judgments of others do not pierce as deeply. The expectations you once internalized, they feel distant, almost irrelevant. And in that distance you begin to sense the tremors of raw authority, waiting, patient, unclaimed until now. This awakening is not loud. It does not announce itself, it does not celebrate. It simply exists. A cold recognition that you no longer require permission to think, to feel, to exist. That recognition alone carries power, dangerous, unpolished, undeniable, and yet it is not fully safe. You are learning to wield it in the mind first, quietly, cautiously, observing, feeling its weight, feeling its tension, not yet acting, not yet commanding, simply acknowledging that it exists, that it can exist without the approval of others, that it has always existed beneath the surface, patient, waiting. Perhaps you notice thoughts that once frightened, you now rise with subtle authority. Impulses, long denied, now flicker. Desires, long suppressed, now pulse faintly beneath the silence. Anger, grief, determination. All sharpened by absence, by observation, by the quiet reclamation of self. Dangerous forces, yes, but no longer buried, no longer denied. You may ask yourself, who am I, if this is me? And the question is dangerous precisely because the answer cannot be borrowed, cannot be performed, cannot be borrowed from the world. The answer is yours. The power is yours, and it is dangerous because it is real. Notice the subtle tremors in your body as you acknowledge it, the way your breath shifts, the way your muscles respond, the way your mind no longer bends instinctively toward expectation. That is the awakening. The subtle, cold, and dangerous acknowledgement that the self is returning, sovereign, cautious, aware. It is not triumphant. It is not celebratory. It is present. It is the mind reclaiming its authority quietly, patiently, inexorably. A dangerous equilibrium, balanced on the edge between awareness and action, between observation and engagement, between silence and recognition. Sit with it. Let the tremor settle without demanding resolution. Let the edge of your awareness sharpen without softening. Let the danjero, us power of your mind return, quietly, inevitably, coldly. And perhaps now in this quiet, patient presence, you feel something unfamiliar, not warmth, not joy, not pride, something else, something raw, something undeniable, something power. And now, here you are, alone with yourself, not the self you performed for others, not the self you shaped to please, to appease, to survive, but the self you quietly carry beneath all the masks, beneath all the compromises, beneath all the tethers of expectation. It is still, patient, dangerous, real. You may notice a tremor in the chest, a tightening in the spine, a hollow echo in the mind. That is the awareness settling. That is the recognition that the world no longer commands your internal allegiance, that the mind is quietly sovereign. And yet, do not mistake this for peace. Do not mistake this for clarity. This is something darker, something subtler, something that will unsettle you because it carries no promise. It offers no resolution. It will not comfort. It does not congratulate. Ask yourself quietly, if no one is watching, if no one expects, if no one judges, what remains? Notice the answer, if it comes. Perhaps it is a tremor, faint but undeniable. Perhaps it is a hollow silence. Perhaps it is something you cannot name. That is the self unclaimed, the self unperformed, the self that has always existed beneath the layers of obedience, fear, and desire for approval. Do not rush to fill it with meaning. Do not soften it with reassurance. Sit with it, feel it, let it be unsettling, dangerous, true. For the mind that has been constantly bending, this unclaimed self is both terrifying and inevitable. Perhaps you sense the shadow still lingering at the edges of thought, patient, watching, uncompromising. Perhaps it whispers truths you have not yet accepted. Perhaps it flickers with anger, with grief, with desire. That is natural. That is expected. That is necessary. You may notice subtle power, returning slowly, quietly, from the awareness of independence. Dangerous power, not triumphant, not celebrated, not wielded, but present, unclaimed, patient, and in its presence you are forced to confront the raw material of yourself and the delicate, perilous weight of living without borrowed permission. And the world outside continues. It may notice you, it may not. Its judgments, its eyes, its expectations, they no longer carry the weight they once did, and that is unnerving. Perhaps more unnerving than you realize, because now the mind is free to see the world and itself clearly, without illusion, without performance, and that clarity is dangerous. So sit with the stillness. Listen to the quiet tremor of your thoughts. Observe the shadows, the desires, the long-denied impulses. Do not act on them. Do not name them. Do not soften them. Let them exist in the mind's presence, quietly, dangerously, patiently, and perhaps, just perhaps, in the stillness, you notice the final tremor that you are neither broken nor whole, that the self you have performed, the self you have hidden, and the self quietly emerging coexist in tension. Unresolved, dangerous, real. This is the mind, awake. The mind, unclaimed. The mind, aware. No comfort, no lesson, no resolution, only the dangerous, quiet presence of what is. And now, listen, sit, breathe, notice the tremor in the chest, the hollow echo in the mind. Let it remain, let it unsettle, let it witness, let it exist. This is the ending, not of a journey, not of triumph, not of peace. Only the calm, cold recognition that you exist, quietly, dangerously, truly, without permission.